I stepped outside expecting nothing more than a quiet morning, maybe a cup of coffee on the porch. Instead, I was met with utter chaos. Loud, frantic barking filled the air, echoing through the neighborhood. I followed the sound to the front of my house, where an animal control truck was parked in my driveway, its lights flashing aggressively. Two uniformed officers were standing near the vehicle, one gripping a catch pole, the other flipping through a clipboard. And right between them, growling, standing his ground, was my dog, Rex, a retired canine police dog. Then I saw her, HOA Karen. Arms crossed, chin lifted, a victorious smirk stretched across her face. She was practically glowing with satisfaction, standing a few feet away, watching the scene unfold like she had orchestrated the whole thing. "Finally," she declared, loud enough for the entire street to hear. "That mutt is getting taken away. No one here wants a wild animal like that roaming around." My jaw tightened. My dog was many things: loyal, disciplined, highly trained, but a wild animal? That was laughable. I took a step forward, narrowing my eyes as I studied Karen. "Wild animal?" I repeated, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "Are you talking about my retired canine police dog?" Silence. The younger animal control officer, a man who looked barely out of his 20s, froze mid-page turn. His partner, an older man with graying hair and a tired expression, hesitated, suddenly less eager to complete whatever they had been called here to do. Even Karen's triumphant expression flickered for a brief moment before she quickly recovered. "Oh, don't start with me," Karen huffed, waving a dismissive hand in the air. "I don't care if it's a circus dog, a police dog, or the Queen of England's corgi. The HOA has received numerous complaints about that beast. He's loud, aggressive, and a danger to the community." I let out a short laugh, shaking my head in disbelief. "Oh, really?" I said. "And who exactly filed these numerous complaints?" Karen scoffed, shifting on her feet. "That's confidential information. The HOA doesn't have to disclose." I cut her off with a smirk. "Let me guess," I said. "You filed them, didn't you?" Her lips pressed into a thin line. The older officer cleared his throat. "Sir, we were called in under the impression that this was an unregistered, aggressive animal. If this is a trained service dog, we need to verify some details." I didn't break eye contact with Karen as I reached into my back pocket, pulling out a neatly laminated ID. I held it up for them to see. Rex is a retired canine officer, fully licensed, documented, and protected under federal law. I turned back to Karen. "So, tell me again, what exactly was the problem?" Karen's smugness started to fade, but she wasn't ready to back down yet. "I don't care what fancy papers you have. The HOA has the right to enforce community regulations, and I have every reason to believe that animal is a danger." The younger officer hesitated before glancing at his partner. The older man sighed, rubbing his temple. "Ma'am," he said, directing his attention to Karen, "unless this dog has been proven to be a threat or a violation of local law, we don't have the authority to seize him." Karen's face twitched. "But he barks! Constantly!" I shrugged. "Dogs bark, Karen. It's what they do," she sputtered. "This isn't over," she snapped before storming off down the sidewalk, her shoes clicking angrily against the pavement. I exhaled slowly, watching her go before turning back to the officers. "So, gentlemen, anything else?" The older officer shook his head. "No, sir. Sorry for the trouble." I bent down, scratching Rex behind the ears. "No trouble at all," I said, smirking as I watched Karen disappear into her house. "That was actually pretty entertaining."
I had lived in this neighbourhood for a few months now, and if there was one thing I had learned, it was that the Homeowners Association, especially its self-proclaimed queen, Karen, loved nothing more than controlling every tiny detail of people's lives. The irony? I wasn't even part of the HOA. My house sat just outside its jurisdiction, meaning their ridiculous rules didn't apply to me. Not that Karen cared. From the moment I moved in, she had made it her personal mission to enforce HOA policies on me, despite having no authority to do so. First, it was my mailbox, wrong colour. Then my lawn, wrong type of grass. But nothing, absolutely nothing, infuriated her more than Rex. Rex, my retired canine unit. A decorated officer, a hero. To Karen, he was nothing more than a filthy, dangerous menace. "She's just afraid of dogs," my neighbour Greg had once whispered to me at a community meeting. She tried to ban them entirely a few years ago, but the vote didn't pass. Ever since then, she's been trying to get rid of them one by one. I had laughed at the time, thinking he was joking. But I soon learned Karen was dead serious. Every chance she got, she filed complaints. He's a safety risk. He barks too much. He's too big for a residential neighborhood. Each time, I calmly pointed out that Rex was a professionally trained police dog, a retired officer who had helped take down drug rings, locate missing children, and assist in some of the biggest criminal cases in the state. He was disciplined, obedient, and gentle. A dog that wouldn't so much as chase a squirrel unless commanded. But Karen didn't care. "It's not about training," she had sneered at me once. "Dogs are unsanitary. They track in filth, they shed everywhere, and they spread diseases." I had stared at her, half expecting her to be joking. But Karen never joked. "So," I had said slowly, "your issue isn't that Rex is dangerous, it's that he exists." She had sniffed, crossing her arms. "I just think this neighborhood would be better off without certain disruptions." Right! Disruptions. Karen didn't just hate my dog. She hated all dogs. She had successfully pushed out 3 other dog-owning families in the past, forcing them to move after endless harassment. She had tried to pass new HOA policies banning dogs over a certain weight limit, demanding that all animals be kept indoors at all times, and even attempting to require DNA testing on dog poop to fine owners for unauthorized waste disposal. Crazy. Fortunately, I was immune to HOA policies. Unfortunately, Karen refused to accept that fact. That's when the letters started. I received my first official warning a few weeks after moving in. A neatly typed letter with the HOA logo at the top, stating that my dog was in violation of community noise regulations. I had laughed and thrown it away. The second letter claimed Rex was a known risk to local wildlife and accused me of allowing him to roam freely, which was an outright lie. Rex never left my property unless he was on a leash. I had thrown that one away, too. Then came the fines. Of course, they weren't real fines, just more fake HOA threats trying to scare me into submission. I ignored every single one. But Karen wasn't the type to give up easily. No, she was getting desperate. And when Karen got desperate, she got reckless. That's when she decided to take things to the next level. The first warning letter had been ridiculous. The second, laughable. But by the time Karen sent her third complaint, I started to wonder just how far she was willing to go. "Your dog has become a menace to the community," the letter read, printed on the same HOA stationery she loved to flaunt. "His excessive barking and aggressive behaviour have disturbed multiple residents. If this continues, the HOA will be forced to take action." I snorted. Rex? Aggressive? The same dog who had once protected a lost toddler by laying down next to him until help arrived? The only time Rex barked was when someone approached my property, and even then it was a single warning bark. Not frenzied yapping, not wild aggression, just a trained alert. Exactly what he had been taught to do as a police canine. But Karen didn't care about facts. She was determined to get rid of Rex, and if her silly warning letters weren't enough, she was going to try something worse. A week later, I got a notice in the mail. Animal control case number 45902, nuisance dog complaint. I stared at the paper. Nuisance dog? Karen had officially reported Rex to animal control, claiming he was a threat to the neighborhood. At first, I found it amusing. I had nothing to worry about. Rex had no history of aggression, no complaints from actual neighbors, and no violations of any real laws. Animal control would take one look at him, realize he was well behaved, and drop the case. But Karen wasn't the type to leave things to chance. A few days later, I overheard her talking to someone in her driveway. "Yes, officer. I'm telling you, the dog is aggressive. He growled at me just last week. My neighbour's kid is terrified to walk past that house. It's unsafe." I stepped onto my porch, pretending to check my mail, and caught a glimpse of the person she was speaking to. It wasn't a police officer. It was just some guy in a generic security uniform holding a clipboard, nodding along to her every word. That's when I realised she wasn't just reporting Rex to animal control. She was trying to get him seized, and she was willing to lie to make it happen. The next morning, I woke up to find another letter taped to my door. "Final warning. Remove your dangerous dog immediately or further action will be taken." I shook my head, crumpling the paper in my hand. Karen had no legal grounds to demand anything from me, but she wasn't going to stop until she got what she wanted, and I had a feeling her next move would be even worse. I crossed my arms, waiting for an answer. The two supposed animal control officers hesitated, shifting on their feet. Their uniforms looked off. Something about them seemed unofficial, too plain, no proper insignia. Karen, however, was practically glowing with self-satisfaction. She smirked, folding her arms like she had just won a lifelong battle. "This neighbourhood has rules," she declared, loud enough for the surrounding houses to hear. "And your mutt has been a nuisance for far too long. These officers are here to take him away." Rex, sitting obediently beside me, let out a low huff, tilting his head. He wasn't barking, wasn't growling, just watching the situation unfold like he somehow understood the absurdity of it all. I turned to the officers, keeping my voice calm. "Who issued the seizure order?" They exchanged glances again. Neither spoke. That's when I knew. There was no order. I took a step forward, slowly. "Animal control doesn't just show up without paperwork. So, again, who sent you?" One of the men cleared his throat. "We received a report about an aggressive dog from the Homeowners Association." Karen jumped in. "Yes, multiple complaints. He's a danger, and it's time for him to be removed." I let out a short laugh. "Karen, you do realise that the HOA doesn't have any legal authority over me, right? I'm not even a member." Her smug expression flickered just for a second. "That doesn't matter. You're still in this neighbourhood and we have standards." I turned back to the so-called officers. "Okay, let's assume for a second that you're legit. Do you have any proof that my dog has violated any laws? Any reports from actual law enforcement?" They hesitated again. One of them glanced at Karen as if expecting her to back him up. She nodded furiously. "I've personally seen that dog act aggressively. He growls at people and barks at night." Rex let out another small huff, clearly unimpressed. I sighed, pulling out my phone. "You know what? Let's make this official. I'll just call the actual police and have them confirm whether or not this is a legal seizure." That's when one of the officers panicked. Hold on. There's no need for that. We're just here to evaluate the situation." I raised an eyebrow. "So, you're not actually here to take my dog?" The second officer wiped his forehead. We were just following up on the complaint." Karen's face twisted in fury. "No, that's not what we discussed. You're supposed to take the dog away." I smirked. "Disgust?" One of the officers shot her a warning look like she had said too much. That's when it clicked. Karen hadn't just reported Rex. She had hired these guys. They weren't real animal control officers. They were private contractors, probably some security firm she found online, hoping to bully me into giving up my dog. I shook my head, pocketing my phone. "Well, this has been fun," I said, "but unless you have a signed order from law enforcement, you're not taking my dog anywhere." The fake officers shuffled awkwardly. They knew they had no real authority. Karen, however, wasn't ready to give up. She stomped her foot like a spoiled child. "This is unacceptable. That dog is a danger, and I won't have him in my neighbourhood." I gave her a slow, mocking smile. "Oh, Karen," I said, "you really should have done your homework." I take a step forward, my eyes locked onto the so-called officers. "Let me get this straight," I say, keeping my voice even. "You're here on an HOA complaint with no legal order, no police involvement, and no actual evidence that my dog is dangerous?" One of them shifts uncomfortably. "Well, we were told." I hold up a hand. No, I don't care what you were told. I'm asking for something real, a document, a report, anything that legally justifies you trying to take my dog." They glance at each other. Karen, however, is not one for patience. She huffs, stepping forward. "I called the authorities. They agreed with me. That's why these officers are here." I let out a slow, amused breath. "Oh, really? You called the police? And they just, what? Sent animal control without bothering to send an officer? Without filing a report? Without talking to me first?" Karen stiffens. "Of course they sent someone. You're just being difficult." I tilt my head. "Okay, if that's true, then where's the police officer? You know, the one who supposedly authorised this?" Silence. I turn back to the two officers. "Have you seen any police officers here today?" One of them hesitates, just a fraction too long. "We, only got a report from the HOA. There was no official order." "Bingo," I smirk. "Let me help clear things up then." Without breaking eye contact, I tap my phone screen and dial the non-emergency police line. "Hello? Yes, I need an officer at my address. I have individuals attempting to seize my property under false pretenses. No, there's no official order, just a homeowners association complaint." "Yes, I'll wait." Karen's face drains of colour. You don't need to do that, she splutters. This is just a simple removal. I raise an eyebrow. A simple removal? You're trying to steal my dog, Karen. One of the fake officers looks like he's seriously reconsidering his career choices. Look, we don't want any trouble. We're just here because we were called in for a complaint. Then you should have checked whether the complaint was legal, I reply smoothly, because right now what you're doing looks a whole lot like an attempted theft. And I'm pretty sure that's a crime. Karen lets out a frustrated noise. This is ridiculous! That dog is dangerous! Rex, who has been quietly sitting beside me the whole time, lets out a big yawn. I gesture toward him. Yep, he looks terrifying. The first officer mumbles something to the second. Then, as if coming to an unspoken agreement, they take a slow step backward. Maybe we should go, one of them mutters. But before they can make a move, the sound of approaching sirens fills the air. I take a slow step forward, my sheriff's badge gleaming under the sunlight. You said the police approved this? I ask, my voice calm but firm. Karen's smirk falters. That's strange, I continue, tilting my head. Because I'm the sheriff, and I don't recall signing off on anything. The silence that follows is absolute. Karen's mouth drops open, her usual bravado suddenly absent. The two animal control officers freeze like statues, their eyes darting between me and Karen. I take another step forward, holding my badge up just a little higher. So, I say, drawing out the word, would someone like to explain to me why an HOA complaint suddenly turned into an attempted illegal seizure of personal property? The officers are the first to crack. Look, we were just following a report. One of them stammers, hands up defensively. She told us there was an aggressive dog and that the police had already given the green light. I glance at Rex, who is now lying down with his tongue hanging out, clearly bored by the whole situation. Does he look aggressive to you? I ask, arching a brow. The second officer shakes his head rapidly. No, sir, he does not. Karen, however, still hasn't found her words. Her face is pale, her mouth opening and closing like a fish gasping for air. I turn to her. Karen, what exactly did you tell these men? She swallows hard, then forces out, I was just trying to protect the neighbourhood. I let out a slow exhale, rubbing my temple. By filing a false report, by impersonating police authority, by wasting city resources on a personal vendetta. She bristles, her old arrogance flickering back for just a moment. You can't talk to me like that. I have rights. I tilt my head, smiling slightly. You do, and you also have responsibilities. Responsibilities you chose to ignore when you lied to law enforcement. Her face turns an alarming shade of red. The officers, sensing where this is going, exchange another glance. Sir, one of them says carefully, are we in trouble here? I sigh, slipping my badge back into my pocket. That depends. Are you willing to testify that Karen knowingly lied to you about police authorization? They don't even hesitate. Absolutely, the first one says. She told us outright that the sheriff's department approved this, the second one adds. We had no idea she made it up. I nod slowly. Then I suggest you both leave before you get dragged further into this mess. The two don't need to be told twice. They practically scramble back to their truck, not even bothering to grab their equipment before speeding off down the street. Which leaves me and Karen. She glares at me, her hands clenched into fists. You set me up, I chuckle. You set yourself up, Karen. I just let you talk. The sound of sirens grows louder in the distance. Now. Out, I say, crossing my arms. Why don't we have a little chat with the real police? Karen's face twists in panic as she realises the weight of what's happening. I didn't know, she blurts out, her voice suddenly high-pitched. I was just trying to keep the neighbourhood safe. I smirk, crossing my arms. Oh? So you think the HOA has the authority to seize a sheriff's police dog? Her mouth opens and closes, but no words come out. Then, in a desperate attempt to shift blame, she whirls around to face the animal control officers. They told me they had the right, she insists, pointing a shaky finger at them. I was just helping. One of the officers scoffs. Ma'am, you were the one who called us. Her face drains of colour. The neighbours have started to gather now, drawn by the commotion. Murmurs ripple through the crowd. Did she really try to steal his dog? One woman whispers. She lied to animal control? Another man mutters, shaking his head. Karen glances around, searching for someone, anyone, to back her up. But for the first time, she finds nothing but cold, judgmental stares. Even her closest HOA allies remain silent, inching away as if afraid her downfall might be contagious. She lets out a nervous laugh, raising her hands. Look, this is all just a big misunderstanding. But before she can finish, the sound of approaching sirens cuts through the air. The real police have arrived. Karen lunges toward me, her face twisted in desperation. Wait! There's no need to escalate this. We can talk about it, she pleads, her voice shaking. I sidestep her easily and raise my phone to my ear. Yeah, this is Sheriff last name. I've got a case of HOA misconduct, false reporting and obstruction of justice, I say, loud enough for everyone to hear. Karen stumbles back as if the words physically hit her. The neighbours exchange looks. Some of them even pull out their phones, recording everything. Please, Karen whispers, her voice barely audible. I turn to face her, my expression calm. You lied to animal control. You impersonated law enforcement. And worst of all, I gesture to Rex, who sits obediently by my side, ears perked. You tried to take a decorated police dog from his rightful owner. The animal control officers take a step back, clearly wanting no part in this mess. Sir, we had no idea. We were just responding to a report. One of them mutters. I nod. Understood, but next time verify before you act. Karen's hands are shaking now. Then the distant wail of sirens cuts through the tension. The real police are on their way, and Karen? She knows she's finished. The flashing red and blue lights reflect off the stunned faces of the gathered neighbours. Karen stands frozen as real police officers step out of their patrol cars, their presence exuding authority. One officer approaches me, nodding in recognition. Sheriff, we got your call. What's going on here? I gesture toward Karen, who looks like she wants to melt into the pavement. This woman falsely reported my service dog as dangerous, lied to animal control, and attempted to have him illegally seized. She also claimed law enforcement approved the removal, when in reality she fabricated the entire thing. The officer's eyes darken. He turns to Karen. Ma'am, is this true? Karen opens her mouth, then closes it. Sweat beads on her forehead. I was just trying to follow HOA regulations, she stammers. Another officer flips through a file handed over by animal control, his brows knit together. Interesting. We have multiple complaints filed by you against this dog, each one dismissed due to lack of evidence. Yet, you continued reporting. He looks up. You do realise false reports are illegal, correct? The crowd murmurs. HOA members exchange uneasy glances. A woman steps forward, one of Karen's longtime supporters. Wait! So all those letters, all those complaints, they weren't real? She asks, disbelief in her voice. Karen whirls around. Of course they were real. That dog is perfectly well behaved, I interject, arms crossed. Unlike you. More neighbours start speaking up. She told me Rex attacked someone, but I never saw anything. She made me sign a petition saying the sheriff's dog was a threat to children. I only signed because she said it was a safety issue. The officers exchange looks before turning to Karen. You've been fabricating complaints and weaponizing the HOA against a law-abiding citizen, one says. That's harassment, abuse of authority, and obstruction of justice. Karen's face drains of colour. The officer facing her doesn't flinch. We're going to need you to come with us for questioning. The neighbourhood watches in stunned silence. The self-proclaimed queen of the HOA, now reduced to a mere suspect, about to face the very consequences she thought she could avoid. The fallout is immediate. News of Karen's misconduct spreads like wildfire, and the HOA is thrown into chaos. At an emergency meeting, the board members, once Karen's loyal followers, are now desperate to distance themselves. This is unacceptable, one of them announces. Karen abused her position and we won't stand for it. A vote is held, unanimous. Karen is officially removed from her position as HOA president. She protests, of course. This is a witch hunt. I was only trying to protect the neighbourhood, but no one listens. The police finds her personally for false reporting, obstruction, and misuse of emergency services. The number, tens of thousands of dollars. On top of that, angry residents file lawsuits against the HOA, claiming harassment and abuse of power. One by one, homeowners withdraw from the organisation, refusing to pay dues to an HOA tainted by scandal. Without funds, without leadership, the entire structure collapses. The once feared HOA, gone. Karen, stripped of her title, her influence and her power, is left with nothing. Ashamed and disgraced, she quietly sells her home and moves out of the neighborhood, hoping to escape the humiliation. But as she loads her belongings into a moving truck, she glances around one last time, only to find a group of neighbors watching her. One of them, an elderly woman, leans over and whispers to another, "Good riddance." With the chaos behind me, I walk back toward my house, Rex trotting beside me as if nothing had happened. The neighbours are still buzzing, whispering among themselves about what just unfolded. A young boy no older than 10 hesitantly steps forward. His eyes shine with curiosity. "Sir," he asks, his voice filled with awe, "are you really the sheriff?" I crouch down to his level, giving him a knowing smirk. "What do you think?" His eyes widen. "That's so cool!" I ruffle his hair before standing up. Behind me, Karen still stands frozen in place, her face ghostly pale. She knows she messed with the wrong person. I glance at her one last time. No clipboard, no smug smirk. Just a woman who thought she could outmaneuver the law and lost spectacularly. With that, I walk inside, shutting the door behind me. Justice has been served.